You're listening to the Gettin Salty Experience podcast.
Away we go.
Wait a minute.
We are back. Yes, we're back. I know you missed us. We're back with the Gettin Salty Experience podcast. It's the only one in the whole wide world that brings the Firehouse kitchen table to you. We bring it all.
Huh. Yeah, something's different tonight. I can't put my finger on it. Lou, have you been on vacation recently? You look like you got a little more tan.
I fixed my curtains too. Haven't you noticed?
Oh, wait a minute. That's not Lou.
Wait a minute. Mira que pasa.
Mira que pasó. It's our buddy.
MC in the house tonight, bro. You know, me and Louie were just saying, bro, we're having trouble getting on black guys. So
you're our token
on the show. So,
you're our token, not black guy. He's Dominican and Puerto Rican. So first of all,
and he can move. Look at him, bro. And he can move. So he is Dominican and Puerto Rican, bro. Isn't that like an oxymoron or something like that?
I mean, it's interesting because I was saying this off the air. My mother, and thank you guys for letting me guest host tonight. My mother's Puerto Rican. My biological father is Dominican. And honestly, like growing up, I never really thought much of it because it's basically for me growing up with the same food, generally the same culture. It was the same for me. So it was never an issue. Like my grandmother, who I love dearly, is Puerto Rican. So, you know, there was never much of a difference for me. My friends were mixed and it wasn't that bad.
No knife fights at Christmas or nothing like that.
Surprisingly, not. Maybe
you didn't have to pull out your Marine issue K-bar that you just got.
No,
World War II.
But Dominicans kind of have the edge on that one because we have
the edge.
I swear I didn't mean to do that on purpose either. That was accidental. But that's a couple of. Not knife fights in our family, but I say if they did happen, Dominicans would have the upper hand because we're known for machetes. So. Not that I endorse such behavior.
Machete.
No. Well, you know what? A very wise man from Pennsylvania once said to me, or I heard this, Pete. Hi, good night, everybody.
Same guy said that as well. Yeah.
Yes.
Come on, man.
So we got that going for us.
Oh my God! It's been a rough week. It's kind of been a rough week for me, man.
You know what? I missed all these guys. I did miss them. Louie's been away. Then Pete went away. I'm here by myself. You know, trying to hold the fort down. So we had to phone a friend we called Mikey Cologne.
Yeah. Yep. But Lou is in the house though.
Yeah. Oh, there he is.
He hasn't sent us any dead animal photos yet. So
he sent a couple that he passed on that they were too small or something. I don't know.
Yeah, he sent the buck that he passed on with it's got a really small rack.
Maybe he'll even jump in tonight. We sent him the link, right? You never know.
Yeah, we'll send him the link. He's probably in the middle of God's country.
Getting yelled at.
Maybe he'll chime in from the hallway. People
are really excited, by the way, about the show tonight, the Bell Club. You know, I didn't know how much history the Bell Club has and how much people, you know, really wanted to see this, but they're buzzing. They're buzzing. It originated back in 1939. That's a long ass club, bro. And some of our distinguished guests, like Bobby Sarno, who will be with us
his
tonight.
Dad, I believe his dad was a founding member of the Bell Club. So the Bell Club's got a lot of things circulating around it besides, fire. They have a lot of diverse members, shall we say. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of aspects to the fire service that the Bell Club is involved in that I had no idea until we met these guys. We have the president on tonight, and we have the what is Ed? Ed is on the board of trustees. Ed Kelly and Sergio. How'd you say it before, Pete?
Nieto.
Mike, you tell us, Mike. How do you say that?
Nieto. That's how you say it. Pete said it right.
Yeah, Nieto. Nieto.
Which is Spanish for grandson, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's why we need a guy like him on the show, bro.
Once in a while, you know, we got to change the demographic, you know.
Yeah.
Let's keep it fit.
Only thing I know, no picky panny, picky ingy. That's what I know. That's about it, bro.
No picky panny, picky
That'll get you
ingy.
Well, welcome back, guys. We missed these guys.
Yeah, man. We're happy to see everybody in the chat. Already, we had a little commentary here. Hold on a sec. From John Delmores, who said, "Truth be told, joined the Fire Club." Oh, it went away. Joined the Bell Club in March 1971, following my father and brother. Second brother followed me. Great club. Thank you,
Wow.
John, for that. That's
Yeah, you know
really
what that
cool,
means
man.
also? That means that John's old. Joined in 71. For crying out loud.
Got a few. We got a few guys who are older. You know, it's all right.
You know what's interesting about the Bell Club? Just looking at the history of it, and I know we'll get into it as we go along tonight. It's been around 83 years now. Started in 39, as you mentioned, Coops. But what I loved about it most is that the originators of it, and like I said, we'll talk about it more in depth momentarily, didn't have much in common outside of love for the fire service. So that's one of the beauties of the club. It bonds people that you wouldn't suspect from different walks of life together for a common passion.
That might even bring, like a Dominican and a Puerto Rican together. You know,
Exactly.
Could have that kind of bond.
That might have united my dad and my mom. Who knows?
Maybe they were members of the Bell Club.
Maybe they were. I'll have to ask.
I don't know.
I gotta ask. Well, why don't we knock out our commercial real quick and then bring these folks in, okay? Because I know they're all itching and rearing to go. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, we bring you always the best sponsors in the game, and tonight, as always, New Jersey Fire Equipment Company has sponsored the show. Here they are. Established in 1930 and under the current ownership since 1987, the New Jersey Fire Equipment Company handles a complete line of fire department equipment and supplies. Headquartered in Greenbrook, the company operates full 3M Scott service facilities in Ridgefield Park and Toms River, staffed by 10 fully authorized Scott certified technicians with a fleet of 6 fully equipped service vans. All New Jersey fire technicians and sales representatives are active or retired firefighters, officers or chief officers, career and volunteer. They understand the business and the importance of their work. New Jersey Fire has represented Scott since Earl Scott entered the SCBA business at the end of World War II. Among other leading manufacturers represented by New Jersey Fire are Globe and Firedex Turnout Gear, Mercedes Hose, Task Force Tips and Akron Brass, Hygenol, Fire Hooks, Arctic Compressors, MSA Carnes Helmets, ChemGuard Foam, Alkalite and Duo Safety Ladders, BA Face Shield Protectors, Truckman's Choice Saws, Grove's Gear Racks and Washer Dryers, Supervac Fans, RPI, Streamlight, and many others. A New Jersey incorporated and based company, sales and service are limited to the state of New Jersey. Find us now at www.njfe.com. That's www.njfe.com.
All right. While we're talking about New Jersey Fire, I got to do a quick shout out to one of the owners of New Jersey Fire, Jimmy DeGuiney, and also a guy who works there, Kevin Meehan. He's a chief in the MetLife Stadium. They have their own fire department there, believe it or not.
Really?
Yes. Nice. It's a pretty big fire department. Anywho, I got jet tickets, and Chief Meehan told me to come on over to the firehouse. I went to the firehouse, parked there, no less. He drove me, my entire family, to the stadium, went in, no lines, got in there, and we got on the field, bro. We got on the field. My kids were like, my dad's the greatest guy in the world right now. I was like numero uno dad in the world that day, bro.
And they
kids
won,
didn't know what to do with themselves. And they won. And then they picked me up, brought me back to the firehouse. So I got to give those guys a shout out. Great job. Thank you so much. I'm like, it's one of those, what do they call those, core memories or something that the kids get?
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
I'll remember that forever.
First chess game or whatever. That's a big one.
Yeah,
that's a big one.
Thanks to those guys. So, all right, let's get on with the show, bro, because I'm interested to find out.
Well, let's bring them all in, Kev.
All right, let's bring in Ed Kelly, Sergio Nieto, and my dad, Bobby Sarno. I'm gonna have him adopt me because I told Pete and Mike in the pre-show that there's something about this man that reminds me of my dad passed away a long time. He was a fireman too, but there's something about Bobby. Every time I see him, I just get all warm and fuzzy. I don't know.
Welcome to the show, gentlemen. Welcome to
the show, fellas.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So Sergio is the El Presidente. Mr. Kelly is board of directors, and Bobby, who we all know is in Slash and 283, but his dad was, I believe, a charter member.
Well, a founding member.
A founding
Founding
member.
member.
A founding member of the Bell Club. So
Well,
let's.
We're
What?
gonna get into it, but we have to do one quick thing.
Oh, you're
You
right.
see
I'm
that
sorry.
flag behind me? It doesn't
I
salute
do.
itself.
I am remiss, Pete. I'm sorry.
That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, before we get into it with our guests, now we're live. We're on the show. Let's do what we love to do because we are the most patriotic podcast in the game. Ladies and gentlemen, the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hey, and one more thing, actually.
Yeah.
Today is the 247th birthday of the Marine Corps, the United States Marine Corps. So happy birthday, Marines, if you're
Hoorah.
listening out there.
Yes.
All right. And enjoy your dessert, your crayons for dessert tonight, boys. They're well deserved. Well deserved.
I don't even know what that means, but okay.
It's a
So,
thing. You'll
it's a
understand
thing.
later.
All right. So I'm going to give a little brief history starting, and you guys could chime in, and then I want to get into a little bit of what you guys do, how you got into the Bell Club, and what you guys do outside the Bell Club, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to read a little something here. It says, on the bitterly cold afternoon of February 3rd, 1939, a small group of men gathered outside the quarters of Ladder Company 24, then located on West 33rd Street, Manhattan. These men were all fire buffs sharing mutual interests in the New York City Fire Department, and they frequently met outside the firehouse. On this particular afternoon, they were approached by a police officer who suggested that they were likely to freeze unless they sought a warmer place to meet. He directed the men to 119 West 33rd Street to a loft building near the firehouse. It was here a week later on February 10th, 1939, that the Fire Bell Club was organized with 22 founding members, including Frank Brannigan. So does anybody know? I mean, they were established in 39. Does anybody know when they were unofficially started meeting before this time in 39?
Well, they were meeting for years outside the quarters of Ladder 24. So that's how it all started. One guy was hanging out, and some guy passed by. He met up with this guy, and then before you know it, there's a group of 12. And then there was like a dozen, and then they hung out big time, even in the winter. And then that day there was a cop walking by. He was walking the beat, and he's looked at them and said, "What are you guys doing? You're gonna freeze out here." And then he tipped off the members that there was a space around the corner that maybe they should look into it, and that's how the ball started rolling.
So when they rented this place out, I mean, they had no funds coming in, so they all dipped into their pockets and rented this place. Is that basically how it happened?
That's basically how it happened, yeah.
I could imagine real estate might have been a little cheaper back in 1939.
Yeah, a little bit.
So, just to tell you, I had a customer back in the day, and he was a regular customer, and he lived in Murray Hill, and he lived in one of the brownstones, and he was there for years, and this was back in the 90s, and he told me that his rent was like $34 for the freaking apartment on Murray Hill because he was there for years. Now imagine that these days, having an apartment for
$34. Yeah, $34. You can't get nothing for $34. You can't even walk out the grocery store without paying $134 for crying out loud.
Right. That doesn't even fill a shopping bag anymore.
Yeah, nope.
Not even close.
Yeah.
Spent $76 today and didn't even fill up a shopping bag. So
Look at you.
Those were the old rent control laws of New York City. There are still people who have apartments that are paying Zippo, okay, on Riverside Drive, famous actresses, and they're paying nothing.
huh.
But that's another
Yeah.
story. That's another
As long as they don't get out of that apartment, they have their rent controlled, right? But once they move out, I believe that they can change that from a rent controlled apartment.
correct. Correct.
So
It
that's
goes
why
to
they never
market.
leave.
It goes to market rate. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, fellas, the reason that the fellas used to congregate outside of ladder 24 was because A, it's pretty centrally located in Manhattan, but
31st
B, it
Street.
was also the quarters of the 3rd Division. And so the fellas, if they hung out there, if there was anything going on in the whole borough of Manhattan, they could listen to the bells come in. The division got all the calls for all the multiple alarms. So then they would all run and get on the subway or jump in a cab and go up to Harlem or down to Greenwich Village, wherever the action was.
So they didn't have any cars. They probably, you said they
Well,
jumped on
that's
mass transit and buffed it out.
Yeah.
Wow, that's hardcore, bro. Let's grab a subway or or maybe even a trolley car. There was a trolley car back then and buff out.
Yeah.
Kevin,
Right,
my father always used to say they had the best bells because they would outside the door they could hear everything going on in the whole borough.
So that's why they would hang out there.
Ed is exactly right when he said that. My father always talked about the bells there.
Now, a charter, he was a founding member, right? What's the difference between? I thought a charter member was a founding member.
Serge, maybe you could.
No, in this case, go ahead.
No.
In this case, the founding members, there's a list in the history that I wrote a few years ago, and there were so many guys that were there in 1939. Okay, when as the founding members, but a year or so later, the club was issued a charter. Okay, it was incorporated and chartered. I'm sorry, February of 1939 was the founding members. In October of 1939 is when the club incorporated and was chartered by the state of New York. And there's actually we have the original charter. What is it? It's like not a plaque, but it's a certificate of the original charter of the
I
Fire
don't know
Belt
if you can see it.
Yeah, actually, I have the list here. That's why I circled John Sarno on there as one of the founders. So 39. So do you know how many years before that he was buffing out with these guys, or
My father?
Yeah,
he started as a little kid outside of 47 Engine, standing there. He knew all the boxes and he can count the bells, because he grew up on the west side of Manhattan up there, and he used to hang out at 47 Engine.
So if at 39 he's an adult, so we're talking about what 1920?
He 1925, 1926. He started as a kid.
Shit.
He was 6 years old. My grandparents used to say they couldn't find him, and then they found him a block later. Though it was hanging out at the firehouse.
Man, those buff roots run deep there, Sarno.
Yeah, they kind of do.
If I can just point out real quick, sorry, Kevin.
Go ahead, no problem, Mike.
The rent for that space where they rented it, and it was worth noting, Luke Crane, who was a former trooper in the 13th Cavalry, Tom Baxter, who was an electrician with the New York Phone Company at the time, and George Morley, who was a banker on this little lesser-known street called Wall Street. The rent at the time was $25 a month, and every member had to contribute $1 to keep it going. Now you salivate at that, but back then that was a lot of money, because it's worth noting for context, this was during the Great Depression era.
Right. Just post coming around out of it, right? Because 39 is when we got started with World War II, and then we started ramping up production, and then everyone started to get jobs. So we were coming right out of that Great Depression era. But yeah, you're right. $1 a month is a pretty good investment, right? I mean, how do you get those shekels together? That's the question. Interesting.
So speaking of which, let's get a little background on each of you guys. We'll start all the way to the right, and Ed. So tell us about how you got hooked into the fire game. But you were a serviceman, right? In the military. Give us a little background on you.
I graduated in 1970, and I did a 30-year career, 10 of it on the reserve, 6 years in the active, 10 years reserve, and then back by President Reagan to active duty, and spent another 14 and retired from active duty in 2000. In the spring of '9, a good friend of mine who was a salesman in Manhattan took me to my first bell club at the hotel And I had previously, I came from my family. My father, several uncles were all in the FDNY. And if I hadn't gone to the military, I would have followed them on the job. At that point, I was about to graduate from West Point when this friend of mine took me to a Bell Club meeting, and I said, "This is just terrific." A little digression there. Almost 30 years later, when I joined the club, there is a requirement that you attend 3 meetings before you can apply for membership. And that night in 2001, I said, "That meeting I went to in 1969 count?" And they gave me credit for it.
Did they really? Good.
Yes, they did. They did.
Gentlemen.
So that's I've been a volunteer firefighter at one point in my career. And what else? Tomorrow's Veterans Day, and I'm very proud of it.
Well, thank you for your service, Ed. That's for sure. Any regrets not getting on the fire department?
About not job? Well, I could tell you a long story, but I actually was on the list in 1970. My father called me up when I was at Fort Benning, Georgia, and he said, "I signed you up for the fire test." And I said, "Damn school, okay? I can't. I have 5 more years to serve in the Army." He said, "Okay. I knew you always wanted to be a firefighter, so I signed you up." 3 weeks later, I was on a plane city, okay? Test. The questions that I missed, okay? I got a 96 on the test. I missed 4 questions about who was on the city council because I didn't live in New York. I didn't know them, okay? But the rest of I wrote a good score. They put me on the list. And of course, then they kept deferring me because of my active duty status, okay? And then finally, in 2006, when I decided that I was going to go into a reserve status, I came back to the city and I checked into it and they said, no, your list has expired, number 1. Number 2, they just laid off about 1,200 firefighters. So, but the lieutenant I spoke to at headquarters said, "Get yourself a good lawyer and maybe you could get reinstated on the list." Years and years later, I forgot about it. I went off into business, went to graduate school, did other things. Years later, I'm talking to Eddie, Chief of Department Ed Kilduff, and I said, "When were you appointed?" And he said, 1977. I said, "That's impossible." I said, "What list were you on?" "We were on the same list." And I said, "They weren't appointing people in 1977. He said, "What had happened was the list had expired. A lot of the guys who had been laid off did not come back. So they went to Albany, reinstated the list. Okay. And that's how he got on the job. What had happened with me was the last contact I'd had with the FDNY was when I was stationed at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I had moved several times since then. So apparently they sent this letter out, but I never got it. Mm. So I didn't know that I could have gone on the job in 1977.
Oh,
wow.
At that juncture, when Eddie Kilduff was telling me this story, the other guy standing there was the commissioner, Sal Casano. I turned to Sal Casano. I said, "One of these days, Sal, that catch up with me. And I want his job and back pay for 35 years.
Did he go for it? Was he all right?
He said, "Sure, absolutely. Anything you say."
Like, yeah, sure.
So
Well,
that's my story. Any regrets? No, I had a wonderful career in the service. Okay.
I was going to say, you must have had a wonderful career regardless. So it's not like you weren't walking, amongst Jolly Green Giants over there in the Army, with some really, important human beings over there as well. So good on you, sir.
Yeah.
And I got to be a volunteer fireman in Connecticut for a while. So
hey, I got that.
Did you get the nozzle?
Yeah, I got the knob a couple of times. Okay.
And you retired an officer, you said, right? Good for you.
Yes.
Great job. All right, Sergio, man in the middle. What about you, fella? Give us a little history on you, how you got into the Bell Club, and how you got caught up in the whole fire buff world.
Well, I was born and raised in Queens. I lived up the block from the old big house. The big house was in Jamaica, 162nd Street, which had the 275, 298, 299, 127, and the 50. So pretty much every day I saw the rigs coming back and forth, back and forth. So in the summertime, when we would be playing outside, my aunt would be watching us, and every time the trucks came by, they would stop. The guys would get off the rig and they would come hug and kiss my aunt. And so I was like, wow, they got a great shiny rig and they're so nice to my aunt. These guys are great. I want to be like them. And so that's where the spark came up. And so the only thing is that like I had asthma, so that prevented me from getting on the job. I had 3 near misses with life-threatening asthma attacks. So when I went to my doctor and he said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I want to be a fireman." He said, "What are you, crazy? I saved your life 3 times from asthma attacks." I said, "I don't want to hear that. So go do something else." So the asthma attacks kept coming on and off. And like I just said, all right, I can't do the firefighter. So I went on into private sector, and like then one day I was out at the Border Patrol 304 and 162, and the officer of the engine, Mike, I forgot his last name, he comes up to me and say, "Hey, Serge, man, why don't you do this? This is a great organization." He hands me the page, the newsletter. "Why don't you reach out to them and get associated with them?" And like, it's a good organization. So I reached out and wrote a letter, and they invited me in. This was in 1991. So I came to 3 meetings, and then in 1992, they swore me in as a member. That night, I came in with Terry Hatton, and back in 1992, from that night on, we became friends. We would hang out, beer buddies and all. And like it just blossomed from one thing to another. Met a lot of great guys. And then back in 2000, Matt Daly was the secretary of the club, and he had just had his newborn daughter, and he couldn't make it that night. Joe Higgins was the president of the club, and he said, "Do I have any volunteers to step in to take notes as secretary tonight?" So I raised my hand. I said, "Okay, how bad could it be? I'll just take notes and see where it goes." So I took notes, and then the following month, Joe Higgins comes up to me and said, "What are you doing sitting over there? Come up here and take notes." I said, "I was just last month." He said, "Oh, you didn't know that you pretty much volunteered into the secretary's position." So
you got it, kid.
Yeah. So I became the secretary in 2000, and then became state secretary till 2015. At that time, Joe Higgins was stepping down, and like he said, "Good luck running the club." I said, what are you talking about?" And like they took a vote, and like at first they had mentioned they nominated somebody else for president, and they nominated me for vice president. But the guy who they nominated for president said, "No, you nominate Sergio. He knows everybody in the fire department. That's your man who should be president." And so I became the 17th president of the Fireball Club in 2015. So here we are 7 years later and enjoying it.
How many members now, Sergio?
About 125.
125. And how often do you guys meet, and what do you do at your meetings?
Well, we do the meetings once a month. We talk fire stuff, multiple alarms, and we talk club business, and we have guest speakers. The guest speakers is the highlight of the evening. And so we've had amazing guest speakers. Being that I know a lot of people in Metro Tech and all, I'm out in the field a lot, and like support the organization, I have the opportunity to bring on some amazing guest speakers. We've had everybody as guest speakers. Every commissioner, first deputy directors, borough commanders, chiefs. The last guy we had was my buddy, Captain Mark Gregory from 176. He had an interesting presentation about fire officers, and so it's really a nice thing. We all get together. We all come from different walks of life. You could be Republican, Democrat, atheist, Christian, whatever. It doesn't matter. When we come in the door, everybody hangs up their identity, and we all just get together in camaraderie.
And it's all about
for the
fire. That's it.
fire.
Right?
That's it. Fire, and it's
Fire.
it's a beautiful thing because it's a brotherhood. And then when we have our meetings and when we have our annual dinners, everybody gets together. It's a big celebration of life and of the fire service. It's a beautiful thing.
I'm going to make a suggestion. I say maybe the first 20, 30 minutes, maybe play an episode of Getting Salty while you guys are on it. I don't know. What do you think, Pete?
I mean, I think if they, like, you know, you could take like, the Chief Richardson episode.
Yeah,
or, that's like always
Commissioner
a good
Nigro.
There is him. Maybe Mystical Duff. I call him Ed. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
But maybe
Our
you get
friend
Eddie
Ed.
on. Yeah.
My the first episode I saw of Getting Salty was when you have my buddy on, Freddie LaFamina.
Hey,
Man.
Pete, you know him, right, Pete? Hold on, man. I think we have a clip from him. We might have a clip.
I do.
There he is.
Yeah. So let me tell you, fellas, fire.
Sergio, come here. You know what you can do, Sergio? You can act like a man.
What's the matter with you? I'm smart, like everybody said.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right, let's get to the guy over here on the left. Where everybody knows this guy, but we'll give the people who haven't seen him yet a little brief synopsis of the Sarno fire story. So give it to us, Mr. Sarno. From the time that your dad used to bring you around in the carriage, buffing out fires.
Wow, he started when I was a kid. He had a converter in the car, an AM converter to high band, and he would listen to we were the only family in Valley Stream that had had fires in the car, and my mother used to scream, "It sounds just static all the time." But we would end up. He would throw me in the car with my brother sometimes, and we would go to fires in Rockaway and Queens and stuff. And it was I grew up with it. It was just something, we always did. And he always talked about the club from when he was younger. And then he went off to he was in the service. He came back. And that's how I got some of those pictures that I sent to you guys, Sergio, through Father O'Brien.
Nice pictures.
Yeah, of the dinners and in 1947 and a few other pictures of them buffing out a scene of a fire. You can see they're all wearing badges on themselves. And it was just, he always talked about the club. When he was working day tours in Manhattan, he would stop at the club on the way home. That was one of the ones we sent in.
Which one's your dad again, Bobby?
Looking at the picture, he's the third from the right.
The tall guy standing over Al Capone? The guy standing right behind Al
Capone? He was probably like set 19 in that picture. That always cracks me up.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Good God.
And I think that Matty Lamazny is one of those guys. And I looked at the names of the founding members, and I remember 5 or 6 of them as a kid when he brought me around to the club. I remember some of those guys. I always remember the name Jack Cashman because my father and Jack were the only guys that went on the job from that original bunch founding crew.
Those guys are all firemen, Bobby?
No.
Oh, those are the only guys that were on the job? Is that what you said?
No. I don't know what these guys are, but of the original founding members, only 2 guys went on the job.
Oh, went on the job. Okay, I got you.
Right. That's
now, where was this?
Serge, that would be in the Hotel Martinique or one of them early hotels.
I think that's the McAlpin.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
They had-
I'll go ahead, Bobby. Sorry.
No, they were weren't you guys the only people that were allowed to have bells and stuff in your quarters?
That's correct.
So that was always pretty cool. You know, you could
Yeah,
I put that. I had that somewhere. It said that. 5.5 years later, the Commissioner Frank Quayle authorized the issuance of official fire department gold badges. First of all, to all club members, right, displayed throughout the fire scene.
The badges before that, in 1940, Commissioner McGillicuddy authorized the clubhouse connection to the department fire alarm telegraph system.
Oh, right. That's what it says. Yeah.
So we had the bells, and then Commissioner Quell in 46 authorized badges for us. So the badges look pretty much like this, the starburst.
So every member got one?
Every member got one.
And they would wear it when they were buffing out a fire scene?
Exactly, yeah.
Right. Now, the bells that you had in that, because it looks just like a house watch, the other one, right, Pete? There's another picture. Where were the bells coming in from, all over the city or just Manhattan or what?
That's 1940.
I would imagine it was rigged up to Manhattan.
So
in those days, Manhattan and the Bronx were on the same circuit. So you would get anything from Manhattan or the Bronx would come in over those bells, and that's when the club would clear out. If there was something going on in the South Bronx, everybody be out of the clubhouse and up to the South Bronx.
What a schlep!
One of the things I find most impressive, a testament to the dedication of the club, is that you guys, and then remember, this is 1940, so this is pretty ahead of its time. You guys had radio to monitor WNYF, which now, of course, is the fire service magazine for the FDNY. But back then, that was the radio bandwidth for the entire department. So you had an antenna across the roof. You were able to get the station in the Bell Club, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, thank goodness to the Commissioner McGillicuddy who authorized that.
I'll say.
Well, plus the chief of the 3rd Division was the first guy to authorize that because they were in good with him. I think they probably gave him a bottle of scotch for Christmas or something.
Allegedly.
Just one bottle and not a case.
He was the guy who let them run
in his
water
old
across
age.
the roof.
All right. I got to ask you guys. So, in terms of buffing out, and this goes for you too, Bobby. Like, I don't know if you buff out at all because you've been to all the fires. You put them all out. You always had the nozzle.
He still buffs. You kidding me, bro? You know that doesn't leave you, Pete.
Bobby threw Lou's can down the hallway. He kicked you around a couple times, Coobs. He's been done that. But I got to ask, from a buffing perspective, not as a firefighter, but a buffing perspective, what's the craziest fire you guys have ever been to?
Wow.
Yeah, it's a little different, right? When you're
Pete pulled that one right out of his ass. Like, holy shit, Pete did something.
Pete the Killer.
Well, crazy was it's been like when Tommy Williams got killed that night. You know, fell out
in
of
the Rockaways, right? Yeah, a wind-driven fire in the Rockaways project.
He fell out, and you know, that was the first time I was at a fire where we had somebody get injured, and you know, thereafter was line of duty, and that just was like, wow, man, that's like crazy, you know, because I always saw the firefighters as you know, you go in, you put it out, you come out, have a cigar, you know, move on and celebrate, go back to the firehouse, chat over the kitchen table, lessons learned, and then, you know, that night, you know, Tommy didn't come home, and that was that was something crazy. Yeah,
that's the reality of the job.
If I may ask real quick, you know, it's interesting. You mentioned Sergio becoming a member of the club in 1991, and it was an interesting evolution for the FDNY in the 90s. The city was in the middle of a renaissance. There was a lot of construction going on, and naturally with that, a lot of emergencies. And then in 1998, you get the advent of the Special Operations Command for many reasons to not only handle hazmat emergencies, but potentially terrorist incidents as well. As you were seeing that from the perspective of a club member, tell me what you thought during that time for what was a very interesting and game-changing revolution for the world's largest fire department.
Well, I saw it moving into the 21st century. Mind you, we started transitioning into bunker gear, and then we started coming into the new Sea Wraith pumpers. So it was like big giant leaps going forward. A lot of the guys retired because they didn't want to like get into the bunker gear stuff.
Oh my
And so
goodness.
it was like just like crazy evolution. Things were like changing. I was like, whoa, what's up? This was like a whole different fire department changing from in that time,
Right.
So it was interesting to see.
I remember Commissioner Safer telling me when I had him on the podcast a little while ago that he joked, I didn't want to bring the FDNY into the 21st century. I just wanted to bring him into the 20th century because he paid a visit to a firehouse when he first became fire commissioner in 1994. And Mayor Giuliani had called him up and he said, well, I need you to fax something. And he asked one of the lieutenants at the firehouse, hey, can you fax this for me? The lieutenant looked at him and said, we don't have any fax machines. And he pointed to the old print typewriters. So immediately, thus began the evolution of at least getting the FDNY some computers and, well, bringing them into the 20th century.
For being one of the, maybe the biggest fire department in the world, we were always behind. Even the volleys, right, Bobby? I mean, they had bunker gear way before us, man.
Yeah.
And it's all other departments.
I remember that. We used to order carbon paper, and then all of a sudden we got a fax machine. We got, wow, this is great.
You had a ditto machine. Remember the ditto machines?
We didn't even have that.
But isn't that like a it's just kind of like typical of firefighters, because that's what's the phrase, Kev? Firefight, of all the things firefighters hate the most, it's change, and what's the other thing that they
that's Louis.
What's his phrase? Basically, you guys hate change, and you always complain that things don't change enough. So
very true.
Yeah. So like
Bobby, fireman complaining. What? Come on. Nah, never heard of it, bro.
Never. But I mean, right? I mean, like even with the bunker gear, right? So then we came, with the hood, I can't feel the heat, and then all that stuff, right? Like, but at the end of the day, everybody now embraces it. I would imagine. No.
Everybody, like back then, like Ray Downey, because I've been around a little while. Ray Downey would go into a fire, take a deep breath, not even wear a mask or anything, and be able to do a search and come out 3 or 4 minutes later. And like, how the hell do you do that? It's crazy.
Yeah. Let me ask you this: in the Bell Club, like, in the group of guys, does each guy have his own little specialty? Like, is one guy like all knowing about the rigs? One guy knows about special ops. One guy is, the truck company specialist. Does everybody have their own little forte?
Yeah, throughout the years, the older members did. Like Jack Lurch, he was an apparatus guy. He knew everything about apparatus. He could tell you the serial number of every rig, when it came in, when it came out. And then there were other guys that were interested in the hose lines and all that. Another guy was interested in the merge between EMS and fire department, how that came about. So yeah, this is true. Everybody has their little niche with the history of the department.
You mentioned being a friend of Terrence Hatton, of course, and here was somebody that lived and breathed the fire service. He wanted to master every aspect of it. And I think he started out originally when he got to a rescue company. It was Rescue 2 in Brooklyn. He would study the rig for hours on end in between runs and go over every tool until he mastered it. Just being around him and hearing his visions on the fire service. Everyone else says he would have ran to the department someday. What did you see? Did you feel the same thing, that he would have been chief of the department one day, guys?
He was a junkie. He was a fire junkie.
I don't think the guy ever slept.
He said as much. They asked him at a fire scene one time.
Nope.
She's like, one of the reporters said to him, do you ever get any sleep in this company? And he looked at her. He said, sleep? I never sleep in this company. And he walked off.
Every time, like, we would go out for drinks, everything would be fire. But like, in answer to, I guess, your question, when he went to Rescue 1 captain, that's all he wanted to do. He didn't want to like go any further. He was happy just
I don't think he would have left there, Sergio.
He was happy. That
like
would've-
Liam. I mean, Liam has passed up chief now quite a few times to stay the captain and rescue too.
Yeah.
When you got a spot like that, I'd be like, I'm staying here, bro.
It's the ultimate command.
That's what he wanted, and that's what he got. And he said, "I'm staying here. I don't need to go anywhere. This is what I want, man."
He would have the guys out drilling 1 o'clock in the morning, bro. Like that guy never slept.
He'd read the New York Times economic section, not to study the stocks, but to study what it was doing to building construction in the city.
Yep. He had a vision and a sight that, like you were just saying, like to read the New York Times. He would find fire or something to learn in everything he read or everything he looked at, man.
Yeah. Then one day he went to the commissioner's office and he said, "Yo, why don't you put us on pin jobs? Because all we do is sit around the house. We could take in pin jobs along the West Side Highway." And from that day, that meeting, they started assigning the rescue to pin jobs.
That was 1996. It's funny. I had a conversation with a friend of mine from the emergency service unit. He's still in the unit. He's in Truck 10 in Queens. And that was the change. That was kind of why there was the butting of heads there, because up until that point, that was an exclusive job to the NYPD emergency service unit.
Yeah.
Now they go on the report. Now they go on reporter pins. They don't even go on confirmed pins. The rescue rolls on the report of a pin now.
Right. And you need that. Time is of the essence. It doesn't matter who gets there. Just save the life.
Yeah,
so
we got tired of listening to the police radio to get our pin jobs, bro.
I get it. Listen, I understand.
Yeah, that's what happened. We would have to hear the police radio to get a pin job, and then we would roll out and get there before police, and then we would just let the ESU truck take the cable and turn it upside down or right side up.
Oh, right the car up. It was flipped. Yeah.
Yeah, that was their job. So that was
until we got the grip hoist. Then we tried to do it by ourselves so we could practice with it. So Bob,
if I could add something to your what Sergio said about your question about different interests from different people. If you are interested in the fire service, the speakers that Sergio lines up every month and Joe Higgins before him, the speakers that come in over the years have addressed every aspect of the fire service you could possibly imagine. We'll have the communications guys in, the apparatus guys in, whatever it is you're interested in. And not only will you find your particular interest, but it's going to broaden your whole interest in the fire service by being at a Bell Club meeting. It's fascinating.
Yeah, maybe I don't know. Maybe Sergio throws a couple of those guests our way, Pete. You know, I don't know. Maybe I have a bottle of scotch in my hand and I give it to Sergio, and maybe he gives me some phone numbers. I don't know.
Or my way too. Listen, I'm sloppy seconds, but I'll take the guest too.
My goodness,
Mike, you're never sloppy seconds. Come on.
I've never heard such terminology.
Third at best. You know.
So one year we had the retired fire marshal Gene West, and he had this amazing presentation. He was the one that investigated the Peter McLaughlin line of duty, and he also had interesting footage and videos and presentations of the stuff he did, the investigations, and like you've never seen crazy things like he showed.
Well, you know what? We'll get that. I'll take that number first. All right, Sergio, send that to me because we're looking for a fire marshal to get on. So
I know Lou Garcia. I can get you Lou Garcia.
I'll take another one.
I can hook up Gene West for you.
All right, I got your number. We'll be talking. I'm not giving you the blue. I'll get you black. No Johnny Walker blue. All right.
Oh my God. All right.
Pete's paying for it. Don't worry.
No problem.
I'm good with black.
What do you think? Will you take a half drinking proper 12?
Oh wow!
I bought you that. I bought you that.
He bought it.
If I might just chime in here, because Sergio, you mentioned the EMS merger earlier, and that was actually Commissioner Safer's last act before he left to go become the NYPD commissioner. And that was the time of mergers, right? The year before the police department's housing transit merged to the NYPD. A year later, you get this merger. And Commissioner Safer did mention to me previously that before that, New York had the worst cardiac rate response to cardiac arrest incidents throughout the 5 boroughs. So in getting that merger, even if guys were averse to going on the medical cause previously and felt that EMS was better to handle that and they'd rather go to fires, no one can deny it's helped. How did you feel about it at the time? And how did the members who were active in the service, who were members of the Bell Club I'm referring to, that were also firemen, feel about that merger at the time?
Well, we're all about the firefighters, the firefighter side. And like when the merger came about, we were like, okay, it wasn't fully embraced for years, and EMS felt like they weren't part of the department for a while. But like slowly but surely, we started embracing it. A lot of the guys on the field, for years, they didn't think they should be sporting the fire department logo on the ambulances. But Dan Nigro was instrumental in that, and so he did bring it in and made it all work. PJ Martin, he had his part in it as well. He's the one that designed the emblem of EMS. So trying to like just blend it in, jive it in, and finally, we're 20 some odd years in, and finally we're like a unified department. But I still, when I'm out in the field, I still feel that like some of the members and on the fire sites still like, we don't want to hear about them, let's talk fire and stuff.
I think it was actually Von Essen who created the CFRD program, right, Bobby?
Yes.
And it started in Brooklyn, I think, was the first borough.
We went through it in '95. It was 120 hours at the time. We went through training at the Rock. So I think it was before Von Essen. The merger was '95. I remember going through it in '95, and it was exactly what he said. It was not. We weren't happy about it at all.
No.
And it's listen. I retired 3 years ago, and I wasn't happy with it then. But what are you going to do?
I got to tell you though, I've said this a million times. Nobody likes going on these things, but I'm going to say we save more lives day in and day out going to EMS runs and doing early CPR and maybe shocking them than we do making grabs at fires.
Yeah.
No doubt. I mean, and I happened to work 288 when I lived in Queens. They were first due to my house. So I want them there, and I know they're going to be there in 3 or 2 minutes, where I know EMS, maybe 7 to 10 minutes, if that, 12 minutes.
Yeah.
And when my father had a heart attack in the house, 291, the company that he worked in, responded, and they were doing CPR on him quickly. So guys might not like it, and I know it sucks sometimes going on the bullshit calls. There are a lot of bullshit calls, but for every 20 bullshit calls I've gone on ones where we do CPR and shock a woman on a Saturday, July afternoon, and she's talking. She's dead, and she's talking as we're wheeling her out. So
It's good.
It does serve a purpose to the community,
And it was a good move by the fire department to swoop in and get it, because believe it or not, the NYPD almost got it, kind of like you see in Nassau County, because I remember hearing this from Phil Pulaski, who was the former chief of detectives. He was, I think, an inspector at the time. And he says, I was pushing for, at the time, Bill Bratton, who was still the police commissioner, to get it under our belt. So I said, what stopped you? He said, we didn't want to foot the medical bill. So the fire department took it instead. But you know what? It was the right move, because as much as I love the NYPD, they couldn't have done nearly as good a job as the FDNY does with it.
Yep. And you know what? With the runs being down, the fire duty being down, it gives us more of a purpose where they don't shut companies down, right, Bob? I mean,
absolutely.
They
Who
would
knows
shut
how many
companies
people are
down.
alive right now because of that?
Mike, I got to ask you something. Because you have such a diverse understanding of first responders here in New York. do you think? And I don't want to put you on in any weird spot, but
You can get weird. Let's get weird, baby.
Oh.
do you think? Hey, whoa! It's not that kind of
Whoa.
show.
Wait a minute.
Whoa! Thank you for joining us tonight. No. You know, I was going to say, like, did you think that perhaps innately the FDNY had like kind of an advantage in the EMS department over the NYPD, or was EMS going to be like an ESU thing, or was it going to be just a part of the like an add-on to the NYPD?
From what the conversation that I had with Chief Pulaski off air, I think it was going to be the latter, an add-on, because the NYPD, for the record, does have ambulances. The emergency service unit does have ambulances, but they're specifically for cops who have been injured in the line of duty. So if you have a police officer who's been shot, that's the ambulance that's going to transport them. And if they pass away, that's the ambulance that escorts them out the hospital. So what you would have had is cops that would have either already had medical training or put them through a medical course. But that takes time and that takes money. It would not have been smart when you have firemen that have probably already been trained in the same thing. Why not give that to them as opposed to rolling out an extra program for something that I think the police probably would have done well, but like I said earlier, not nearly as well as the fire department's done it. So it would have been
you know, what was more lucrative for them, Mike, was absorbing the ticket agents, because that brings in a lot of this, bro.
Exactly. That was the right merger.
Yeah,
and they already had enough personnel between the transit rescue and housing rescue getting merged with.
And at the time, the ticket agents were they called them the brownies. They were wearing brown uniforms and they were getting their asses beat left, right, and center.
So, and they still are.
No, they're not. They're not getting beat like they used to be. You know, if you hit one of those guys, it's like the same as hitting a cop.
It's
like
felony.
That's true.
So they ticket cops, those guys, all the time, bro.
They're the worst. They're the worst. I want to go back to the brownies days when you could beat them up.
Yeah,
much better.
They used to be, Bobby. Do you remember the EMS guy? They had green outfits, right? Green and orange. Yeah.
They ticketed some of us with the placard that parked outside.
I got a press placard. They ticket me too at press events. They're unbelievable. Unbelievable.
The UFA put out a statement like, be careful where you park, because you know you're gonna get ticketed. You know, it's not like it used to be. If you're not by a firehouse.
Quota, baby.
Kevin, how many medals does the Bell Club sponsor?
I'm looking for that. You just read my mind, bro. I'm looking for it right now.
We do 2 medals.
They do the Fire Bell Club, and they do what's the other one?
The Shelley Rothman Memorial Medal.
That's the other one. I couldn't think of the name.
Shelley Rothman was the chairman of the board when I came on.
Oh, he was Frank Sinatra?
He did it his way?
He did it his way?
Yeah, pretty much. Again, he also was an honorary chief in the police department. So he carried
so he was strapped, you said, right? He carried a piece with him.
Yeah.
He was untouchable.
Stay strapped or get clapped, boys. You know the deal.
When did the Bell Club dinners become so I remember bringing my father when he got older. I would drive him to them, and they were always smaller affairs. They weren't, 80, 90 guys. And then in the 1990s, they exploded. It was like 600-700 people. It was when I came on board, the dinners were small. There were like 100 guys, right?
Maybe 150, and then Frank Donnelly stepped down, and Joe Higgins came in, and Joe Higgins was very well connected in the department. And then when Joe was president, the dinners just started exploding.
Yeah.
And there was a little static between some of the guys.
I remember that.
Like some of the guys thought that what are we doing here? This is like a firehouse convention or something. We're the Bell Club. What's all these firefighters? Yeah,
I remember some of the old timers didn't like what was going on. And
yeah,
even Jack Lurch wasn't happy with that back.
That was one of the guys that really voiced his opinion, and there was I can remember there were heated arguments at monthly meetings between Jack and Joe, because they would go back and forth, and I was like, "Yo, dudes, ease up, man, ease up," They're like, it was like crazy. And then when I became secretary, all the politics started getting involved, and that's not what I wanted.
Welcome.
But he said, "Oh, Joe said, oh, Serge, you're an officer now. You got to deal with it. This is how it is."
How many different places has the club been? I've been in like before. Now they're in the UFA building, right?
Correct. Yeah.
But I can remember at least 2 different hotels they were in. You have a list?
The Martinique, Hold on.
Thanks,
The
kid.
McAlpin.
The
Martinique and the McAlpin.
Yeah.
That's it, just the 2?
No, yeah, and then before where we are now, we were at
150 East 23rd Street.
Yeah, we were on the 3rd floor of a hardware store. That's when I first visited the Fireball Club. So when I went there, I remember it so well. I was going up the steps, and the steps were lopsided, and they were creaking. And I was saying, "Are you kidding me? This is a fire department organization. This building looks like it should be condemned with these steps." We got up to the 3rd floor, and the floor was also like, going lopsided, sagging. Yeah, the floor was lopsided, and I was like, "Oh man!" And then they started raising the rent, and then since Joe Higgins was well connected, he reached out to the UFA, and we finally got the spot in the lower level.
Right.
And so that was a big challenge to bring everything from the 3rd floor down to the UFA lower level. But we got it accomplished. The UFA has been great to us. They charge us very little rent, and we're very happy. We have a great relationship. And, we support the UFA. We support the UFA's El Sasser Fund. We contribute to the El Sasser Fund every year. And we just have a mutual friendship and camaraderie. So thank goodness for the UFA, because, with the high rents around Manhattan, this club probably wouldn't be in existence if it wasn't for the UFA.
I wanted to ask you, actually, if I was interested in joining the Bell Club, right? Like, or if I had my mind about buffing for the FDNY, how would I join the club, and what would the process be like now?
So first of all, we don't solicit. If you're interested in the Fireball Club, you reach out to us, and then we would tell you would need to come invited for 3 meetings. After the 3rd meeting, you can ask for an application for membership, and then the membership director would interview you. The committee would interview you, and then if everything's cool, you go through a background check. Our membership director has FBI credentials, so you got to clear him. And if everything's cool, then we present it to the floor, and the members vote on it, and that's how you get in. I remember when I got in '92, Jeff Johnston's dad was sponsored me. So if you know Jeff Johnston, he started out at ladder 13, went to squad 18, went on up the chain. And so that's basically it. You got to be sponsored.
So I just also want to ask for a friend, not for me, for a friend. If this friend of mine was the kind of guy to run from fires, would he be welcome to come?
Run from fires. Yeah, you gotta pass the membership.
Oh, you gotta
director.
run to the fire.
Right.
Oh, no one said anything.
What about
the direction?
The secret handshake? Can you show us the secret handshake? Is there a woo woo woo? No secret handshakes. Ed knows. It's like the Mason's secret handshake. Right?
It's called Flipping the Bird.
Oh, is that what it is?
Bird.
Yeah. That's when Pete walks in. He says, "Hi, I want to join the Bell Club," and they go, "Yeah, right, Pete. Here you go." There's a secret handshake, Pete.
How many members are in the Bell Club currently?
Right now, there's about 125.
Okay. And are there dues? Like, how does that work?
Oh yeah, it's a dues paying organization. You know, that's how we survive. We also the members make donations and contributions. That's how we're able to sponsor our scholarships. We give out 2 scholarships. We also give out a honorarium with our medals, and you know we also donate to the Alsacer Fund and to other causes as well.
Got it.
And we also do events. You know, like in May, we did the telephone company fire, and we came out with a coin, challenge coin,
Oh, wow.
in honor of the phone company.
We
Now,
got to get one of those to Danny Noonan.
yeah, so actually, that's how this ceremony came about. We saw Danny Noonan's telecast, and we were just like taken aback that the department never did anything to honor the brothers for that fire. So we started talking at the club, and at the same time, Frank Lieb at the Fire Academy was also thinking of doing something.
Yes.
And then-
I was just going to say that.
Maybe
then-
somebody actually from the show called Frank Lieb. I don't know. I'm just going to throw that out there. Maybe somebody
So-
got that whole ball, you know,
So
rolling. I don't want to say who did that. Maybe.
That's right. Like
That-
everybody says.
that whole thing happened at once, because just thereafter, when Danny was on, I was able to have our meeting at the Rock, and I invited Danny Noonan that day, and then Danny spoke to Frank Lieb, and at the same time, Frank Lieb and I had the same idea going, and then that's how we decided to put that May ceremony at
That's
the Fire
awesome.
Academy.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
You guys,
It's amazing.
yeah, Pete.
No, it's just amazing to me. Like, you know, there's a lot of little things that have happened because of the show, and I don't consider that like a little thing, but I'm just trying to be modest. It really does. It's moving to me that we could have interviewed a man who was, you know, that was their 9/11.
Mhm.
And you know, it's very special for me to hear that you guys helped honor what their service was on that particular fire. Thank you for that too. We appreciate that.
Furthermore, we did other things. Let me show you.
Sure.
Hold on.
Was he on a green screen, Pete? What is
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, he's on a green screen. He's disappearing. He's in. He's out.
Oh,
Like
by the
Spider-Man
way,
over there.
the background is of our
CGI.
club.
Look at him.
The officer's desk at the club.
I
Hold
see
on
it,
a
I
second.
see it.
Let me find this.
That was the Oval
Wow.
Office for a second.
He's
Yeah,
really
but-
technical. I thought it was Louis'
So
office over there.
I had a meeting with Dan Nigro and Tommy Richardson at the Fire Academy when we were doing the borrowed plaque dedications on August 18th. And I told them that I wanted to do something for the telephone company fire. And they were all on board with it. I had asked if because Danny Noonan wanted to make a ribbon. So, you know, I'm the kind of guy that like I'll ask until you just say no. That's it, no. So I asked for the ribbon, and we were able to get the ribbon.
Nice.
Tom Corning designed a retired firefighter from Ladder 120, and we were able to give the ribbon to all the retired members that came to the ceremony. So that was a beautiful thing.
Very nice.
It sure
You
is.
guys are doing good work.
You know what else
And-
they do, which he hasn't brought up? One meeting every year you have the shops meeting, and they go to the shops and have a meeting. That's a really nice meeting because the job puts out all the stuff that's coming down the pipe, new
Oh,
ladders,
wow.
new.
You know how long I've been trying to get into the shops and do a show, Sergio? I don't know why I'm getting one of these. I can't get into the shops.
Uh-oh.
Hey, I
But
know
they have
I know a guy at the shops. That
Oh,
guy.
Mark, I've been calling him for ad nauseum. I can't get in there.
It could have been our Getting Salty Awards show. I don't know. Maybe. I'm not
Maybe that
saying.
put-
I'm just saying.
I don't know. Maybe that put him over the top. I don't know.
That's a good
Yes,
meeting because
dickhead.
they have everything new there, and it's you guys put on a nice meeting for that.
What is
Yeah.
that? Maybe we'll crash it. What month is that?
June?
April. April.
Is it? It's April.
Yeah.
Oh, Pete, get the camera ready. We're going in April.
We do the shops. We do an annual meeting at the Fire Academy. We try to do an annual meeting at the Fire Museum. A few
Right.
years back, we had a meeting on board 343. So it's like, thank goodness for the friends at Metrotech. They treat us very good.
On the subject of awards, if I may chime in, because it's relevant, you mentioned 343. The Medal of Valor. I noticed it was given. I look at some of the names who've won this. John Sulka, who's been on this show. James Amato, who died a hero on 9/11, of course. Bobby Athanas won it in 2001. In 2002 and 2003, it was not given out. Now, I just wanted to ask, was that out of respect for the 343 heroes who gave their lives?
That's a good question. I believe so. John Sulka was the first Fire Belt Club medal winner.
Sulka.
1984.
Never heard of him. Never heard of him. Nope.
He was in ladder 11 at the time.
And then we had him as a guest speaker at a meeting years back. And it was like, whoa, dude, this is like crazy. It's like, I remember the guest speakers that we had were just like amazing. Sulka was one, Vinny Dunn. It was like, oh my God.
Done.
Done. No.
Done.
No.
Doesn't ring a bell.
And then Jay Jonas was another guy. Now, mind you, we get guest speakers. They'll talk maybe for an hour, but some of these guys just went straight through for an hour and a half, and you're just like, whoa, information overload. It's
So,
like amazing. though.
It's fun. It's funny because we share a lot of similarities. Then because our show is quite literally having guys on, and then you're sitting there, particularly, when you just said Jay Jonas, it just reminded me of our episode with him. And it was, usually we try to wrap up by, 9:30, 10 o'clock. And we were out to 10:30 with him and felt like we needed an episode 2 and maybe a 3 or 4, and it's not because he was being verbose. It was more so that we were just, enthralled with what he was saying.
Of
right.
course, yeah.
And those experiences, especially with all of our guests we love, but with Chief Jay Jonas being a survivor from 9/11, like an actual person who was in the building when it collapsed on top of him. I mean, it's pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah, to hear his story. I mean, he had his presentation that night. Then he goes and shares his story of September 11th, and you're just like, wow, dude, man, that's like crazy.
Yeah.
And you're an hour and a half into his talk, and you're just like mesmerized listening to this thing.
Yeah, wow, dude, man. That's like pretty much how it always ends up.
Yeah.
Over here. Wow, dude, man. Wow.
Yeah, and the other difference is, I'm sure at the Fire Belt Club, they don't have 3 idiots interviewing all these guys. Right?
What's good about it is
You'd be surprised.
What's good about it is the question and answer session. It's
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
these questions come out of our members are like freaking knowledgeable guys, and you just can't pass anything over them. And then sometimes they ask the questions, and the chief is like,
I
"Whoa,
don't know.
that's a good question, man."
They're probably more knowledgeable than 90% of the firemen about the fire service, right? I mean, the history, everything else. The
Yeah.
guys at the Belt Club probably know more than most firemen in the firehouse.
I mean, they'll come out
Right.
with trivia questions, and most of the guest speakers are dumbfounded, with the exception of Jimmy Leonard. He's really like freaking historical. He knows his stuff. Yeah.
Oh, you got a guy who knows every single box in the city and where it is. You got
It's
one of
like-
those guys in the Fire Belt Club.
I think so.
They call him Rain Man. Yeah, definitely
Dude.
box 275. Definitely.
154 had a guy. They had a buff that hung out there. That if you threw any number at him, he knows the street corners and who's first, second, and third do there.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was at a Christmas party a couple of years back, and like Jimmy Leonard and Mike Galler are sitting at the table, and they're throwing box numbers back and forth. Oh, that's right there, so and so street. It's like, oh my God, these guys are like freaking crazy.
Except this guy at 154, they call him the horse face boy. So that's
a term of endearment.
I have to ask this,
endearment.
and anyone feel free to answer this question. So, you know, in what ways did the Bell Club change your life that you didn't expect? Because we all know, like, I'm a military buff, right? I like military stuff. I like war history. That's what I'm into, right? I love guns. I love guns. So that's kind of what got me into that. So, you know, but there are side benefits to that, right? Like you learn things, you learn some stuff along the way. What did you learn along the way being a buff with the FDNY?
Being a buff with the FDNY or being in the Bell Club? Which is it? Is being a buff?
I mean, like, as a Bell Club member, what are some of the side benefits besides being a buff, you know, and going out?
Some of the side benefits is like being in that command post and hearing the chiefs, you know, confer on what to do next and how to tackle the fire, and you just hear them all the time talking, and like you kind of like pick up on the game plan. And like it's just something that because I'm in the position where I am, I'm also an honorary chief, and so when you get to the command post, you're listening to like 4-star chiefs talking about how to tackle the fire, and you've heard them long enough throughout the years that you kind of anticipate, you know, what they're going to say. And so that's like the inside scoop that like I've taken away from
you ever correct a chief and kind of go, no, chief, I really think you need a big a drape there, you know, it's pretty windy out here. I would secure that if I was you.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of helped out sometimes with the incident commander, and like he like looks at me and, how do you know this? So I've heard things.
I thought Ed was going to say the best perks are the Bell Club groupies.
We didn't know about that. We're out Bell Club.
Oh, there's always groupies, right, Bob? There's always fun. I wouldn't know anything about that. Look at him.
I wouldn't know.
I'll tell you what, though, to address your question.
Sure.
For me, joining the Bell Club after I had retired from the military, that was like, it opened up a whole new world to me. I write history as well, a lot of it about the FDNY. But the people I met through the Bell Club, you know, it just expanded my whole horizon, okay? The guys are just absolutely terrific, okay? And as we've been saying, they're involved in every aspect of fire service. And to put things in an historical perspective, you got to look at all aspects of it. And they're just terrific, okay? It opened up a whole new world to me, number one, okay? I about moved into the man library with Jack Lurch and Danny May. But also, the guys in the club were always bringing different aspects to me, and I loved it. Terrific.
Yeah, like look at Jim Griffith. He does the reference book, and like
you go.
He's like a bundle of knowledge. You know, he's also honorary chief of operations, so he's up there. Very knowledgeable.
We used to love to get in that yellow Fire Bell Club little booklet, right, with the runs, workers, multiples, so you could say, look, squad did more multiples than 270 last month.
Another guy I wanted to ask about, because I mean, I mentioned Terry Hatton earlier, who was a student of the fire service. I would have liked to have seen what he could have done, because he was really ahead of his time, much like Captain Hatton was. Andy Fredericks, a lieutenant with Squad 18, who gave one of the greatest FDIC speeches in history, which is called, of course, the infamous, "Don't worry about that nozzle anymore, kid. We don't fight fires." So being around him, he saw the evolution of the fire service for both the good and maybe the not so good, and he was brutally honest about it. Tell me about some of the more interesting things you saw with him and just your general interactions with him.
Well, I wasn't so involved with Andy, but he was definitely a student of the fire service, and like Terry, his wheels was always spinning, and like he would come out with courses and training seminars and everything, and so it's just one of those guys he wanted to be around because you could learn stuff, and always interesting conversation around the kitchen table, and I just respected him. It was like also leap years ahead of the game. They
Right.
were like like I said, these guys were just junkies. All they did was 24/7 fire, 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 fire. You want to talk about the game last night? They say, yeah, well, we're thinking about experimenting with this new nozzle or whatever. Where Terry was trying to put the new rescue. He was designing the new rescue truck. And that's the thing with these guys. They're always like thinking fire and like unbelievable junkies.
Yep. I think out of all the guys, the names mentioned from other guests, or when we go to trade shows, I mean, other than Keith Nicolello, because everybody knows that guy, it's Andy Fredericks. Guys just talk about Andy Fredericks in such a way, to honor him, that he was, like you said, he was way ahead of his time, and he was always looking outside the box in terms of, ways to make the fire service and putting out fires better than what we were doing.
He'd thrive today, no question about it.
Yeah.
Today's day and age,
Yeah.
he'd thrive.
Yeah.
He would definitely be 4 stars today.
Mm.
Yeah.
At least.
But the thing is that, like, Fredericks just wasn't about FDNY. He went out to Long Island everywhere to spread the knowledge and wisdom.
Yep.
Yeah. So he was highly respected.
So we're going to talk about Buff. One more thing about Buff. We were talking about that before. They were asking you if I think Pete was asking you, right, Bobby? If that ever leaves you, right? We said it's just part of you.
Yeah, I'm still in the volleys too, so it doesn't.
Hmm.
It does.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, everything. Like if I'm home in the backyard doing something and I hear the Long Beach volleys going by, I could tell by the way they're leaning on the horn if they think they have something.
Yep.
And then maybe,
Really?
allegedly, possibly, could be I run in and I get a special Buff radio that somebody got me for Long Island. Then I'll go listen to see what they got. But it never leaves you. Like there's certain things that you hear, you pick up on, or you smell. Like if I go out, I go, that's a car fire. My son's like, where? I'm like, I don't know, but it's real close. And then we'll drive somewhere and like, sure as shit, there's a car fire. Never leaves you.
No, it doesn't.
What's interesting too is where people start being buffs, how they get into it. In my case, I was in a family, but what it did for me was it was my first introduction to the rigid military structure. Because don't forget, the FDNY is based on the Army structure during the Civil War. Okay, so when I was a kid in my neighborhood, just watching the companies, how they moved around, who responded to what boxes, this all became to me an operational puzzle. Okay, and my father at the same time was a commanding officer for a while of a company up in the Bronx. And so those two things in my military career wound up being, my primary concern was unit command, and my secondary concern was operations and training. So I came to be a buff based on what I observed in my neighborhood in the Bronx as a kid. And it took me through a whole career.
I was going to ask you that. I was going to ask you if it influenced your career in the military.
Absolutely. Of course, the third aspect of that is leadership.
Right.
The fire department requires leadership. Okay, those guys are good. Okay, those lieutenants, the captains, all the way up the chain. Not only are they competent in their knowledge of the fire service information, but they are able to take their men into dangerous situations. Okay, and that's the leadership aspect. The knowledge and the charisma to be able to take guys and say, follow me in. Isn't that the military? That's exactly what I had in the military. You had to know your stuff, and you had to be able to project to your men that you were in command, and they would follow you. So the whole thing for me, it's a total meld. Okay, since from the time I was a little kid. Okay, when I first started learning the boxes in my neighborhood, when I was probably 8 years old, I can tell you every box that my old man and my uncles went to. Okay, and it all developed from there. Great question. Thank you.
If I may ask, through the years, you've seen many great leaders in the fire department. We've mentioned a couple. Think about it: Richardson, Gansey, Dunn, Burns, Fian, Nigro, Cassano. The list goes on and on and on. I know you can't pick one over all of them, but if you had to rank them in no particular order, of course, whose leadership skills did you most admire?
Me personally,
Yes.
I could not answer that question. Okay, I've seen so many. You know what I would say? My father.
I knew you were going to say that.
That's not bad.
I was going to say, it has to be your old man. Has to be
Good
your old man.
answer.
He brought it home every day to me. Okay, I'll go you one a little bit further with my old man. When his company had their 100th anniversary a few years ago, for which I wrote the Centennial, a guy came up to me and said to me, "Are you Artie Kelly's kid?" I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "You look just like him." He introduced himself. His name was Clarence Williams. He was the first black firefighter assigned to that company back in the 1950s. And then he told me a story about how my father took him. First of all, took him aside and said, "You follow me. You do what I tell you, okay?" And he broke him in as a probie. He then told me that my father had gone to the company and said to the company, we're getting our first black firefighter in here. He's one of us. That's it, period. Okay? So here I have this man. Now, my father was dead almost 40 years at this point. And this Clarence Williams says to me, "I want to thank you for your father." I said, "Well, I want to thank you. I want to thank my father also." But my father had told me as a child that this was the way you treated your men. Your men were your men, okay? Black, white, color didn't matter, okay? And of course, when I was in the service, there were times when I had 2/3 of my unit were of a different color, okay? But it didn't matter because we were all in there together. So I learned that from my dad, how to treat everybody the same, okay? And boy, do I owe him that one, okay? I don't know, maybe I'm being a little bit too verbose here, but yeah,
No, not at all.
I hope I answered the question.
You did. Thank you. That was awesome.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I would imagine that I would imagine that it doesn't matter if you're falling off a ladder and you reach for a hand, or if you're in a foxhole next to somebody and there's bullets whizzing over your head, snapping over your head. I would imagine it doesn't matter what the color of that person is, one freaking bit.
Well, Bobby, how much can you see in a fire when you're going down the hallway? It don't matter what color you are, right?
That's right, Bobby.
As long as he's advancing the line,
Exactly.
That's right.
Who cares? Well, I don't give it. You can't even tell what color he is. Who gives a
Exactly.
shit?
Hey,
Go
Go
He'll
ahead,
call
Sergio.
you and tell you, "Why isn't the fire out yet? Why isn't it?"
Yeah.
I remember talking to Tim
behind
Brown.
you.
I remember talking to Tim Brown of Rescue 3, of course, a while ago on my show, and he was working during the AIDS crisis. And I said, what was it like to work during that particular crisis in the 80s? He came on in 84. He's like, "We didn't care if the child or the adult, whoever it was that was afflicted, was black, white, or whatever. We performed CPR and medical aid on them all the same. It was your job to help people, not just white, not just black. That's not in the oath. It's people."
Right. Absolutely. Do Dominicans count in there?
I hope. I hope, man. Because if not, I'm in trouble.
Pete, I had that one right here, Pete. It's coming out.
I had to throw it at you, Mike. I love you, buddy.
Dominicans, yes. Puerto Ricans, no.
Oh my God. No,
Whoa.
Pete, tiny. Dude, I gotta tell you, it's I guess it's a far cry. Here's an interesting thing. I wonder, how diverse is the Bell Club? I mean, is it of all kinds of backgrounds? I'm just curious, is it like the FDNY that way?
Well, the Bell Club isn't too diverse.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we got a few Black Americans, maybe a couple of Asian guys,
Oh my God! You let the Asians in. Son of a bitch. I
but,
gotta go tell my wife now. They let the Asians.
but that's the extent of it. And
Any women?
there's a few ladies
But you're
in the
just like
club.
the Getting Salty Experience podcast. You're searching for more diversity as well.
Yeah.
If you need a token
like-
Hispanic, let me know.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. We got one now.
Nah, I mean, listen, it's about
You know
people
what?
who want to be a part of it. It doesn't
Who
matter
gives a
what.
shit? If they love fire, I don't care. I don't care what color they
Yeah.
are. I don't give a crap what they got between their legs. I don't
I was
care.
just more curious than anything. You know what I mean? It's yeah. Do you have any female members?
We do actually.
Ah.
The one lady is honorary fire commissioner. You
No
probably-
way.
So
You
Pete,
probably-
if you join, they'll have two. Oh!
Whoa. There's like well, you probably heard or know Dorothy Marks. She's an honorary fire commissioner.
Nice.
Also, Louise O'Connor. She's on the board of directors. Her dad was her husband, I should say, excuse me, was William O'Connor, and he was one of the guys that got trapped in the Wallbounds fire.
Oh, whoa.
collapse. Yeah. So she's on the board of directors for us. She's very active. She's also in the Honor Legion, and she's also in the Police and Fire Widows
Wow,
Association.
that's an active woman there. I like it.
Good for her.
Yeah.
I guess it's something that brings her closer to her family that passed. So
Yeah, a little story about her. That fire, that Wallbounds fire, was in their neighborhood. And the husband William was on. He took in that job, and then Louise was taking the kids to school, and they just happened to walk by the supermarket, and then they saw the dad on the roof, and they waved. He waved to Louise and the kids waved to the dad. And a few minutes later, the roof just collapsed, and that was the end of it.
I was gonna say, like, don't say it.
Yeah,
But
it's like it's like the script of a sad Hollywood story, you know.
That is one of the most heartbreaking fires, and it wasn't just her. I believe there was multiple people there that were they had family on the scene. I think there's at least a couple of firefighters who had family on the scene.
Yeah, because it was in the neighborhood.
In the neighborhood, yeah, unbelievable, awful,
Yeah,
heartbreaking, man.
Yeah.
That's the reality, you know. So a lot of people don't know, but we do a pre-show for this, as you guys found out tonight. And a lot of times when we talk about what's the old school tip of the day, we have firefighters give us like their best unwritten rule in the books, right? That's not written in the books. And you know, I always say to them, you know, it could be something personal, it could be it could be a technical tip, it could be a brotherhood tip, and then I always say it could be a personal tip, right? Because you could like something like call your wife before you go out, you know, or just hug your wife and tell her you love her before you leave the house, because you never know if that'd be your last time doing it, you know. And I know that's very like morose, you know, and like, but it really is the reality of the job. And it's
yeah. Like my buddy went out. He's out in Brooklyn, and they were at a 2-story tenement, and like he was doing a search in a room, and the guy with the nozzle came in, and like the nozzle blew his helmet off, and like he got his head burnt from the steam from the heat. And you know, he was thinking like, oh man, I'm stuck. And like he was thinking of transmitting the Mayday, but he was able to get out, you know.
right.
But like, you know, I'm just using that as an example. Like you said, you know, you never know. I mean, this is a guy who's been around as a highly decorated officer, and you could get stuck. And,
Yeah.
you never know.
it's kind of, when guys on air and off from both the police department and the fire department tell me, I missed the job. I wish I would have never left. I said, but you know what? There's my counterpoint to that. You got to make that walk down to the pension section.
Right.
There's a lot of guys and gals over the years that never got to. So it's something to be grateful for, to have gotten to the finish line when sadly so many others have not.
I mean, I look at it like this from a very personal standpoint. So, Kevin here is a close personal friend of mine. That's how I got involved with all this to begin with. And our kids are friends, our wives are friends, and I love this guy. And he, he was blown up, man, at Father's Day, and the man was literally, a building was blown up around him. And I always, whenever we discuss that fire and any of that, I always think to myself, my God, that could have been, what a relationship I've had with such a great person. And I would have never known him. I would have never had this experience. I would have never been in this aspect of my life, and it's the reality of the job. It's messed up. It's sad, but it's try to, I don't know how to say it, but it's like you try to avoid that at all costs. But I think you put it best, Mike. If you made it to the end, then God bless you. Just take it and go with it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
How about this one, guys? When I was 9 years old, I'm sitting watching TV at home, and they break in at about 9 o'clock at night. 6 firefighters killed in the Bronx on 176th Street.
Oof.
I looked at my mother and I said, now, remember I told you earlier about learning the box numbers?
Sure.
I said, my dad is third due there. She looked at me and she said, how do you know? I said, I know. My mother got up, she called the firehouse, no answer.
Oh, my God.
That means they're out.
He's coming in and out.
You're in and out, sir.
But
Oh, there he is.
he had, his company had gone out literally 2 minutes before to another fire, another box. This is when they were tearing the Bronx down for the Cross Bronx Expressway. And there was a lot of the first of the abandoned buildings. So my dad is working about 3 blocks away. And to fill in the box, they called in another Bronx engine company. And the third due engine company was working a cellar pipe. And the marquee on the building fell down and crushed 6 guys. To this day, that's the largest loss of fire in the borough of the Bronx. One of the officer in that replacement company, the one that came in third due, where my father should have been, his son, they lived on the same numbered street that I did in the Bronx. And I knew of his son through the Boy Scouts in our local parish. This thing hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm 9 years old. This is not playtime. When he goes out the door, Mom, you ought to hug him, okay? I would hug him. It took me about 2 months before when the WNYF came in and it had the pictures of all the men on the cover. I went to my dad and I said, Dad, how do you feel about that? The fact that probably should have been you on that cellar pipe in that spot. I remember he was sitting at the kitchen table having a beer. He looked up at me and said, just with a shrug, it wasn't my time.
Yep.
Wow.
And that was it. Stoic, totally stoic. He knew what he was doing. He knew what the risk was, but that was the courage that he had to just go and do his job. And if it was his time, he would have been gone. To me, it was like, wow, am I a lucky kid? Because my friend up the street, okay, lost his father. Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether that means anything, but we're talking about, it's not morose. It's the reality of the fire service and the police service.
You're right.
And all the police responders.
Ed, you can't see it, but I got goosebumps from that story, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Wait, do Latino guys get goosebumps?
God. Ladies and gentlemen, it was the Gettin Salty Experience podcast. It's a memory now. It's a memory.
We get rice bumps.
Get up.
Oh, sheetrock.
Oh yeah.
Oye, ¿qué pasó?
If
All
I
right.
may ask, just
Go
sorry,
ahead,
Coops.
bro. I was going to say, has anybody got any wrap-up questions? Because we're getting close. So if you
This
got
is an interesting question. I just to switch
Do it.
gears. You know, the last couple, we're beginning to come out of it, and we're on the other side of it now, which is good. But obviously, during the height of the pandemic a couple years ago, it was difficult to meet in person, especially when New York was the epicenter. How did you guys manage the coronavirus pandemic at the Bell Club?
Well, we had our March meeting in 2020. I remember a few guys. That was our meeting was the same week that the mayor closed down the city, and I remember some of the senior guys telling me, "You think you want to do this meeting today?" I say, "Yeah, we'll do it." Our guest speaker was Chief Joseph Jardin, and we had a great meeting. And then Friday, the city closed down, and I was like, "Oh shit, man! Maybe I should have canceled that meeting." So a few days passed by, a week or so passed by, and I was contemplating, what the hell, man? So I did a roll call, sent out an email, did a roll call, checked up on everybody. Everybody was fine. So I was like, shoosh, I'm glad nobody got sick out of that meeting, because the burden would have been on my shoulders. Who knows if somebody gets, hospitalized or dies from this shit. Well, anyway, we didn't have any meetings. Everything was called off. The orders came down from the commissioner's office to cancel all activities and stuff. So I was thinking, well, if I don't do something, this club could just go by the wayside. It could just fall apart on us. So I was constantly shooting out emails, but finally I was able to put together a virtual meeting. We did Google Meet, and that was my first virtual meeting, and it was a tragedy. I was out in the house in Long Island, and I was in the sunroom, and we're out by the water in Shinnecock Bay, and the connections isn't very good, and the connection kept disconnecting.
Oh gosh.
And
much
so
like Hank's internet.
and so I was able to pull through with it, and then I said, well, I'm not gonna do Google Meet. Then the next month I experimented with Zoom, and that worked out a lot better. And so we started doing Zoom meetings, and the Zoom meetings is what saved the club. It kept us together. We were able to check in, share stories, keep the friendship camaraderie going. And then this was going on for months. And I was thinking, well, I think I want to hold off for guest speakers until we come back to in-person meetings, because I thought, okay, in-person meetings should come by soon. But then it kept getting extended. I said, all right, screw it. I'm going to try to get a guest speaker for our Zoom meetings. And our first guest speaker, like a year later, was Commissioner Nigro. And he said, yeah, well, thank you, for having us. And unfortunately, this is how it is now. We're all through Zoom. Zoom's what keeps us together, and this is how it goes. And thank you, Sergio, for having me. And he shared his thoughts and everything, what the department was doing during that COVID response. And from there on, we just decided to keep bringing on guest speakers for Zoom. And then finally there was the board of directors was going back and forth. When do we do in-person meetings? When do we not? Back and forth. Finally, I said, dude, we got to get an in-person meeting in. So we got the in-person meeting, but I decided to keep the Zoom. And so keeping it, it's very challenging to do in-person and Zoom at the same time.
Yeah.
We've been able to pull it off, and the meetings are big. You used to get 20, 30. Now with in-person and Zoom, we can get 40, 50 members all on board at the same time. So it's been good. So Zoom, I would have to say it was a life-saving source for us.
Yeah. I mean, and not it's just something popped into my head. We did a piece about this on the we did a 4-part series called Welcome to the Rock, and actually Chief Lieb was
I
saying
saw that.
right during his whole entire time there that they had transitioned to that as well, the Zooms and so on and so forth, or their own version of it for educational.
Yeah, remote training.
That's right, exactly that. And so we happened to be in their remote training facility, which was actually a professional green screen studio with lighting. I put Lou and Kevin in the Bahamas or something cool like that. Yeah, it was fun. It was really fun. So absolutely, it's the way of the world. And look at us now. We if this was 1999, I would have built a studio and have backing to have 6 guests in the studio with 6 cameras, and so, and now I could do this virtually from my mama's basement. So here we are.
God bless the internet.
God bless the internet.
Yeah.
I have a question for Bobby. Bobby, you see the pictures that the guys have of the founding members of the Bell Club?
Mm-hmm.
When I put together the history a few years ago for that anniversary, 75th anniversary, we could not find the names of those people, the charter members and the founding members. They were lost to history. Even some of the older guys like Jack Lurch were not aware of who they were. Bobby, if you have any knowledge of who those people are in the pictures, and we have a lot more at the Bell Club, could you get a hold of Sergio and then he'll link you up with me, and we can somehow you can put a name to a face?
I'll look. I had given a lot of stuff to Frank Donnelly when my father passed, and unfortunately that probably wasn't the right move, because he didn't stay in the active much longer. But I'll look and see what I have, because I have a lot of old dinner programs from the 50s and the 60s, from when my father went to dinners and stuff. And I'll look through.
Getting back to that picture, wasn't that Cashman at the very far right?
I believe it was.
Yeah.
Yes. Jack Cashman and my father stayed friends for a long time. He went on to become chief of the Levittown Fire Department, the first chief of the Levittown Fire Department. And he was
wasn't
a lieutenant.
Wasn't he a dispatcher?
No, he was where, in Levittown? No, he was a fireman. And he became a lieutenant. And he became a lieutenant, Jack Cashman. I think I sent that picture too. A picture of him. I took it from the Levittown Fire headquarters. He was their first chief.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yep.
Our archives have all these amazing pictures. There's just not enough wall to display everything.
Really?
Yeah. It's awesome.
And a lot of guys lost the history. We need their names.
All right.
Love it.
We'll try to hook that up. We'll try to hook you guys up and see if
I'll be talking to Sergio soon to get some contacts, so don't you worry.
Well, you know what? We don't have an old school tip of the day tonight, boys, but we do have the old school health and safety tip of the day that we need.
Why don't you tell us all about it, Pete?
Well, I sure will. The First Responder Center for Excellence, one of our sponsors here, is a not-for-profit organization dedicated to protecting the lives and livelihoods of first responders. Their education and research initiatives aim to bring greater awareness and understanding to the challenges of the health, safety, and well-being of firefighters, EMS personnel, and other first responders. The goal is to reduce line of duty injuries and deaths, as well as occupational illnesses. They're an affiliate of the National Fallen Firefighter Foundation. Now, today's old school health and safety tip of the day is: when walking out hose after a fire, firefighters often place the hose over their shoulder when draining water. Avoid letting that hose contact your shoulder to minimize contamination spread. That one's a good one, man. That one's a good one. Right, Kev? I mean, you would never think of that.
Here. You get the theme. Stop taking these deadly carcinogens home with you or back to the firehouse.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
We don't.
These fires aren't. These fires. Well, Bobby knows more than me. These fires aren't just wood anymore. It's all this plastic. and all this other shit that's burning the fires. That's, you know, it's getting on your bunker gear. It's
Lithium
getting on
batteries.
your hoods. Lithium, all this shit. It's
Yep.
toxic. Don't bring it home with you. Live a long life. Like MC said, make that trip to the pension board and walk out with your pension and live a long life after that. So you can get on our show and talk about all the silliness.
Guys are doing 20, 30, 40 years, like in the case of your brother, 40s plus, right?
Still
And-
on.
right?
42
Still on.
years. He's not retired yet.
42
Wow.
years. And guys are doing that amount of time. You know what, guys? You deserve a break. You deserve to cross the finish line. Your family deserves it because they love you more than anything. So head on over to the firstrespondercenter.org. And if you're watching this right now, take your little phone out, point your camera at the squiggly little lines on the screen. That's the QR code, and it will take you right over to firstrespondercenter.org.
Right.
Thank you, guys.
I
Appreciate
stand
that.
corrected. Chief Steve's got 44 years. I'm sorry.
44 years.
He'll say something to me. I know he went tomorrow. Well, you got it wrong. It's 44 years.
We have a member in the club who's been on the service for 51 years as a dispatcher.
Get out of here.
Billy Lydell.
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
Philcom.
Yeah.
Look at that. All right,
I bet that guy knows every box in the city.
It's very.
We'll have to get that guy on when he retires, or maybe
very
sooner.
I wanted him to be on the show tonight, but he had other plans, so he passed up on it.
All
How
right.
dare he? Now he's not.
Now that's it. It's over. Our relationship's over before it started.
No,
I'll be calling you, Sergio, for some of these numbers, and I'm going to feed them all to MC too.
Billy Liddell's the best.
Nice.
MC,
All right, boys.
before we do our wrap out, give a little.
Yeah. Where can they find you, MC?
Yeah.
Okay, so for those of
give
you
the
that
shameless plug. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, it's shameless plug time,
Yeah.
baby. Don't let the soup fool you. I'm just as shameless as all of them. So if you go on YouTube, type in Mike Cologne podcast, and my channel will pop up. You can subscribe. I do plenty of interviews with the members of the fire service. Of course, I have an interview coming up this Tuesday with Chief John Sulka for my miniseries, The Best of the Bravest. Also, a lot of police interviews too. I have a miniseries on the hostage negotiation team, as well as the bomb squad and the emergency service unit. If you would subscribe, I'd appreciate it. I'm actually live on the air tomorrow night for my bomb squad miniseries with a sergeant by the name of Tony Biondolillo, who was also with the Department of Homeland Security. So if you could just show support for the podcast, if you want to, that'd be great. I'm not as good as getting salty, but I ain't that bad either.
If you don't do it, you're gonna get the kangaroo claw. You better do it. I'll give you the kangaroo claw.
You don't want the kangaroo claw for
And
crying out loud.
if you don't want the kangaroo claw, you know what comes next? The kangaroo scrotum. Don't make me pull that out.
If you mail that to my house, I gotta hide that from my mom with the quickness. What'd you get? Oh, just a book.
No,
Or the kangaroo
that
claw
came-
bag.
I
Don't let
came
him-
from a fireman in Australia. I ain't giving that up, bro.
No,
No
no.
Land
way.
down under.
All right, Petey. Do your
Well,
thing. Do your
everybody
spiel.
just hang out and we'll say our goodbyes after the show ends. But very quickly tonight, very quick. Find us on all the players, guys, all the audio players, because we are an audio and a video podcast. So you can listen to this show at your earliest and best convenience. Also, guys, if you're here at youtube.com/Gettin Salty Experience, remember to like, subscribe, and share. We don't go anywhere unless we pump up those numbers. And right now, what am I looking at? Let's just see. I'm looking at 27,170 subs. Okay, those are rookie numbers. We're gonna pump up those numbers.
Come on.
Okay.
I want that. What is that? The silver YouTube statue.
Platinum.
I want it.
Yeah.
Black.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. We gotta get the plaque. Let's get the plaque.
100,000.
Let's get to 100 G's, man. There's people literally like walking in the walls on YouTube, and we got 27,000 subs.
Ray, how dare you, Ray?
How dare Ray? Okay, Instagram guys. I don't even want to see what he said. Add Salty Dog Inc. If you're on Instagram, follow us there. GettingSaltyApparel.com, guys, for the cool hats like the one that I'm wearing, or other things like t-shirts and hoodies. It is hoodie season. It's time, and we're right around the corner from Christmas, so start your shopping early because shipping gets a little wacky for the boys. So please definitely look into that. Super chat, guys. Thanks to everybody in the super chat tonight. You guys are the absolute best. Getting Salty fans page, guys, on Facebook. Very, very interesting. 50,000 subs on there. 27,000 subs on here. Something's not right with the math,
I
but
don't understand how that
nonetheless,
works. I really don't.
I'm just gonna bombard them every day. Like, go subscribe to the channel, you bums. It's free. It's free. I thought firefighters like free.
Bell
Anyway.
Club guys like free too. Don't tell me they don't like it.
That's what I heard. All right. Also, guys, getting salty ads at gmail.com if you want to advertise with the show. We are the firefighter niche right here on the show. We have a direct line to guys who are not only for firefighting stuff, but if you think about it, for a multitude of products. So getting salty ads at gmail.com. Getting salty experience at gmail.com if you want to have questions for our Q&As. Coobs podcast at gmail.com for all of the Cocklofts and Cocktails show. I think we settled, right, Kev? We're done with the other show. This is like our news show, Cocklofts and Cocktails. That's like our news.
Yeah, I think Cup of Joe is out. Cup of Joe and Fuego is out.
Yeah, that's out. But pretty much for our news broadcast, if you want to show us your helmet cam footage or someone else's, send that to us. If you want to show us your firehouse kitchen table, rigs. Don't forget the all important, and this
Hot
is
old
very
lady.
important. The hot old lady contest. Namaste. Very important. Very important. But it's true. We do have a hot old lady contest, and Mrs. Procaccini is still in the lead. I mean, she has some good competition. She did, but she's still in the freaking lead, man. So let's. If you want to dethrone the queen, you better come ready because she is.
Correct. I got one more because I saw it bantering about in the chat.
Oh,
two things.
What's
if you think that you are, because a couple of guys were boasting in there that they are FDNY geniuses.
Oh.
If you think that you're smarter than the other guy, email me at coobspodcast@gmail.com and tell me why you should be on FDNY Jeopardy. FDNY Jeopardy.
Whoa.
Send it in. We'll have it. I'll even dress up in a suit like Mike Cologne. And we'll have FDNY Jeopardy. If you think you're smarter, you know more old school trivial information about the FDNY, send to coobspodcast.com.
I'll wear a tuxedo t-shirt because I'm classy.
And also, if because Roofy is gone quite a few weeks, he's out hunting. So if you think Mike Cologne did a great job, please comment in the section below because I'd like to have him back on because we like to be. There's Louis. Right. There he goes. So if you think Mike Cologne should be back on, put it up in the comments and we will invite Mike on. He's a great guy. And I want to thank Ed, number one, for his service, and number two, for his information tonight. And thank you for taking the time to come on. And Sergio, thank you for what you guys do at the Bell Club. Really appreciate it. And what can I say about my dad over there? Love that guy on the left. Love him.
Thanks.
Very, very quiet.
There
I'm
he
hunting
is.
weapons.
There's Louis. Louis out in the woods somewhere, deep in the woods, hunting poor
Rabbits.
defenseless animals. Yes.
Yes.
But that's all I got. Did you come up with your own sign-off line, Mikey Cologne? Or what are you going to use?
Usually what I say on my show is...
I don't want you to say it yet. When you get to that point, we'll say it.
Oh, my God.
Yes. All right, guys. What do we got coming up? I think Roofy is back next week. We got a guy named Bill Noonan on Monday. I forget where he's from. We got a Chief Tom. I can't read my own handwriting.
Miter.
Troy. Miter from Troy. We have a Random Thoughts with Old Man River, Hank Molay, and Dennis Murphy on Random Thoughts
21st.
on the
Then we got
21st. Thanksgiving. Then we have Captain Dale Jenkins from Houston. I think this guy's got like 50 years on the job or something.
Holy
They have no age out there. I believe he was working. I heard this out of the corner of my ear. He might have been working during the Kennedy assassination. I'm not sure, but we will find out when Roofy gets back.
I want to know who did it. I want to know who did it.
Stay away from the grass, That's all I'm going to say.
We all know that Harvey Oswald was a patsy. Come on, guys.
Yes.
We know this.
All right, guys. We will see you on Monday.
Monday.
What is today?
Yeah, we're back. We're back.
Oh, it's Thursday.
We're back.
We'll see you Monday. And like I said, in the comments, if Mike Cologne should be back on, I'm not really going to listen to you anyway because I'm probably going to bring him back on. So,
Mike, next time,
anyway.
Mikey, next time, you don't have to wear the suit, bro. Loosen up.
That's him, bro.
It's my signature.
Pete, that's your signature. Wear the suit. All right.
All
and do me a
right.
favor. Leave the gun. Take the cannolis. All right. All right, guys.
Thank
Until
you.
we see you again. Thanks, fellas.
Thanks, boys. Just
Stay
hang
low
out. We'll
and
say our
go.
goodbyes in a minute. Go ahead.
Yep.
Guys,
Stay low and go.
Thanks, everybody.
Mike, it's you.
All right. On behalf of Bob Sarno, Sergio Nieto, and Ed Kelly, I'm Mike Cologne, and we will see you next time.
Ooh.
Oh,
Che-
wow, that's too
I'll-
professional.
Oh man, I'll just do
Wow.
mine, I guess. Cheers, everybody. See y'all next time.